The night sky above the alien world was filled with two pale moons, their light spilling over the cracked surface of the planet. Captain Daniel Reyes sat near the wreckage of his shuttle, staring at the glowing horizon. His ship had been hit by a burst of strange energy during a deep space survey mission. The crew had managed to escape, but Daniel's pod had been thrown off course and crashed far away. Now he was alone with little more than a survival pack, a broken communicator, and his determination to stay alive until rescue came. The air was thin but breathable, and the land stretched out in rolling plains of black stone and glowing blue plants that pulsed faintly like living lanterns. Strange insect-like creatures moved silently under the brush, and from time to time, Daniel heard distant calls that echoed like the cry of metal bending. It was a world both beautiful and hostile, and he knew he would have to be careful. He had set up a small campfire using chemicals from his pack. The flickering light kept away most of the crawling things, but Daniel could not shake the feeling that he was being watched. His instincts as a soldier and explorer warned him that he was not alone. Then he heard it, heavy footsteps crunching over the rocks. He grabbed his survival blade and crouched low, ready for trouble. Out of the darkness stepped a figure that made his heart race. It was not human. She was tall, more than a head above him, wearing dark armor that gleamed under the moonlight. Her skin had a faint bronze hue, and markings ran across her arms like natural tattoos. Her eyes glowed faintly, golden and sharp, and in her hand she carried a long spear that crackled with energy at its tip. Every part of her spoke of strength and danger. Daniel's first thought was simple: warrior. She stopped a few paces away, her spear pointed at him. The moons lit her face, showing sharp features and a stern expression. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them was thick with tension. Finally, she broke the silence. Her voice was low, steady, and filled with command, though the words were in a language Daniel barely understood. He had studied many alien dialects, but hers was harsh and clipped, unlike anything he had heard before. Still, he caught the meaning. She was asking who he was and why he was here. Daniel slowly raised his free hand, showing he meant no harm. "I'm stranded," he said carefully, trying to make his words simple. "Crash, ship broken, just surviving." The warrior narrowed her eyes. She did not lower her weapon. She took a step closer, circling him like a predator testing its prey. Daniel stood his ground, refusing to show fear. After a long silence, she finally spoke again, this time in broken but understandable standard. "You human?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, human. My name is Daniel." She tilted her head slightly as if studying him. Then, to his surprise, she lowered her spear, but only slightly. "I am Kalira," she said.
"Warrior of the Veyari." The name meant nothing to Daniel, but he felt a strange relief that she was at least willing to speak. Before he could ask more, the sky suddenly lit up with streaks of light.
A storm was approaching, not rain, but something more dangerous. Daniel had seen the signs earlier. Strange glowing clouds gathering, charged with energy. Now the ground trembled as the storm rolled closer, lightning crackling in unnatural colors. Kalira looked at the horizon, then at Daniel. Her expression tightened. Without a word, she motioned for him to follow and turned toward the hills. Daniel hesitated only for a moment. Staying in the open meant death. He grabbed his pack and ran after her. The storm was fast, winds howling like 1,000 voices. Kalira led him into a narrow canyon, moving with the confidence of someone who knew the land well. They reached an ancient structure half buried in stone, a ruin built long before either of their species had traveled the stars. Its walls were cracked but still standing, glowing faintly with old energy. Inside, the air was cooler, the noise of the storm muffled by thick walls. Daniel set down his pack and looked around. Symbols were carved into the stone, worn by time, yet still shining faintly. He wondered what civilization had once lived here. Kalira sat down against the wall, resting her spear across her knees. She watched him with cautious eyes, as if deciding whether he was a threat. Daniel, breathing hard, finally spoke. "Thank you. If you hadn't brought me here..." She interrupted, her voice calm but firm. "I did not do it for you. The storm kills all who are foolish enough to stand outside." Daniel gave a small smile. "Still, I owe you." For the first time, her expression softened just a little. She studied him again, her gaze thoughtful. Hours passed as the storm raged outside, lightning flashing through cracks in the wall. The ruin trembled, but it held. The two of them sat in silence at first, each lost in thought. Finally, Daniel decided to try speaking again. He tapped his chest. "Daniel, human." Then he pointed at her. Kaelira, she said simply. She tapped her chest. Vayari. Bit by bit, they shared words, building a bridge between their languages. She told him in simple phrases that her people were warriors who lived by honor. They trained from childhood, fought in great battles, and valued strength above all. She herself was part of a patrol when she sensed the crash of his ship. Daniel told her about Earth, about oceans, forests, and cities filled with people. He explained that humans were explorers, always searching for new places, sometimes reckless but always curious. Kaelira listened, her golden eyes steady. At times she seemed amused, at times skeptical. When he spoke of human courage, she gave a small nod of respect. As the night went on, something shifted. The fear and suspicion between them began to fade. In its place grew a fragile trust, built on shared survival and simple conversation. When Daniel laughed at one of his own clumsy mistakes trying to mimic her language, Kaelira gave a sound that was almost a laugh herself, a low, rumbling note that made the ruin feel warmer. Outside, the storm raged until dawn. When the first light of the twin suns touched the sky, the winds began to calm and the crackling clouds drifted away. Daniel stepped to the entrance of the ruin, looking at the new day. The land was washed clean, glowing brighter under the sunlight. He felt strangely alive, as if he had stepped into a story larger than himself. When he turned back, Kaelira was gone. She had left without a word, her footprints leading out into the distance. All that remained was a faint mark on the stone where her spear had rested. Daniel stood there in silence, feeling a weight in his chest. He did not know if he would ever see her again. But one thing was certain. He would never forget the night he had spent in the company of Kaelira, the alien warrior. The rescue ship came 2 weeks later. Daniel Reyes had almost given up hope when the sleek silver shape broke through the clouds above, engines roaring as it descended. He had been surviving on dried rations, strange fruits from glowing plants, and water filtered through his pack. Every night he had slept under the twin moons, remembering the storm and the alien warrior who had vanished at dawn. When the ship's hatch opened, voices shouted his name, and familiar uniforms appeared. His crewmates had not forgotten him. Relief hit him so strongly that he almost collapsed. "Captain Reyes."
"You're alive!"
one of the officers cried, rushing forward. Daniel smiled weakly. "I try to stay useful," he said, but inside his thoughts were not only of survival. They were of golden eyes, a crackling spear, and a laugh that rumbled like thunder. Back in human space, life moved fast. Reports had to be written, debriefings endured, medical checks completed. The command wanted every detail about the crash, the storm, and his survival. Daniel gave them what he could, but he kept one part of the story close to his chest. He spoke of ruins and storms, but not of Kaelira. Something told him her story was not ready for human ears. Not yet. Weeks turned into months. Daniel resumed his duties as an explorer, working with survey teams on the edge of human-colonized space. He trained new cadets, repaired broken drones, and filed endless reports. But no matter how busy the days became, memories of that night returned to him. He would catch himself staring at the stars, wondering if Kaelira still patrolled her world, if she ever thought of him as he thought of her. Then came the news that changed everything. A great gathering was being prepared on Helios Station, one of the largest human colonies in neutral space. Word spread that for the first time, multiple alien races, including the Vayari, would attend as guests. Talks of alliances, trade, and peace filled every channel. Humans were excited but cautious. Many still remembered old conflicts with alien species, and trust did not come easily. Daniel's ship was ordered to Helios Station to assist with security and navigation. At first, he thought little of it. To him, it was another mission, another set of responsibilities. But when he read the official list of alien delegations, his heart stopped. The Vayari. He whispered the name aloud. His hands trembled. Could it be? Would she be there? Helios Station glittered like a jewel in orbit around a golden star. Its towers rose high, its markets filled with traders from dozens of worlds. Banners hung across the halls showing symbols of unity. Everywhere Daniel looked, people spoke with excitement about the arrival of the aliens. The Vayari delegation arrived on the third day. They came in a formation of warships that glided like predators through space, sleek and sharp. When their shuttles landed, armored warriors stepped out in perfect lines, their movements disciplined, their weapons gleaming. They were taller than most humans, their bronze-hued skin and glowing eyes making them look like living statues. And leading them was Kaelira. Daniel froze when he saw her. She was, as he remembered, tall, proud, her armor dark and polished, her spear resting at her side. But there was something different. She did not walk alone. Beside her moved a small figure no more than 3 or 4 years old by human measure. The child's steps were unsure, but their gaze was steady, golden eyes wide with wonder. Their skin held the same bronze hue as Kalira's, but across the face was something unmistakable. The shape of the nose, the line of the jaw, the familiar spark in the eyes. The child looked like Daniel. His breath caught in his chest. For a moment, the world around him seemed to vanish. The noise of the station faded, and all he could see was Kalira and the child by her side. She noticed him. Her golden eyes locked with his, and for the first time since that night, Daniel felt the same storm inside him. Kalira gave no smile, no word, but there was recognition in her gaze. A silent message passed between them. We meet again. Later during the official reception, Daniel could not stay away. The hall was filled with human officers, alien delegates, and diplomats who spoke in careful words about peace and cooperation. Yet his eyes kept drifting to Kalira, who stood tall among her people, silent but commanding respect. The child stayed close to her, watching everything with curious eyes. When the speeches ended, Daniel finally approached. His heart pounded, but his steps were steady. Kalira turned as he came near, her expression unreadable. "Kalira," he said softly. Her eyes narrowed just slightly, then softened. "Daniel Reyes," she replied. Her voice was deeper, calmer than he remembered. His gaze dropped to the child who clung to her armor. The child tilted their head, studying him with an intensity that made his chest ache. Daniel swallowed. "Is this—" Kalira gave a slow nod. "This is Arian," she said. She looked directly into his eyes. "Your child." The words struck like lightning. Daniel's mind spun. His child? Their child? He struggled to breathe, to think. The child's golden eyes, mixed with human softness, made the truth undeniable. I don't, he began, but words failed. Kalira placed a hand gently on the child's shoulder. Her voice was quiet, almost tender. "You shared a bond with me that night. Stronger than either of us expected. Life was created. I chose to keep it, to keep—" "Arian." Daniel's hands trembled. 100 thoughts rushed through him. Responsibility, fear, wonder. He knelt slowly, bringing himself to the child's level. Arian blinked at him, then reached out with a small hand to touch his face, as if confirming the likeness. In that moment, Daniel felt something shift inside him. He was no longer just a captain, a survivor, an explorer. He was a father. The days that followed were filled with tension. News of Arian spread quickly among the humans and the Veyari alike. Some saw the child as a symbol of unity, proof that the two species could share more than words. Others saw danger, a threat to tradition, a reminder that boundaries between races should not be crossed. Human leaders pulled Daniel aside, asking endless questions. Was it true? Did he understand what this meant? Could the child be used as a bridge for diplomacy? Daniel answered carefully, but in his heart he knew this was no political tool. This was his child. Kalira faced her own trials. Many of her warriors looked at her with suspicion. To them, she had broken tradition, defied the strict codes of their people. Yet she did not bend. She stood tall, her hand always near Arian, her golden eyes daring anyone to question her choice. Daniel and Kalira found moments to speak in private. They sat in quiet rooms, away from the eyes of the world, trying to untangle the storm between them. "Why tell me now?" Daniel asked one night. Kalira's gaze was steady. "Because hiding forever is weakness. Because Arian deserves to know both worlds. And because—" She hesitated, her voice dropping. "Because you have the right to choose if you will stand with us." Daniel looked at her, at the child sleeping nearby. His answer came not in words, but in the steady strength of his voice. "I will stand." But even as he spoke, shadows gathered. Rumors spread that the Veyari High Council had learned of the child. They demanded Kalira return at once to present Arian for judgment. Some whispered that the council would never allow such a union to exist. Kalira's face was hard when she told Daniel. "They will call it dishonor. They will demand the child be taken, perhaps even destroyed. My people fear what they do not understand." Daniel felt his fists clench. "Then I'll go with you. They'll have to face both of us." Kalira studied him in silence for a long time, then gave a small nod. "You are not Veyari. You are not bound by their laws. Yet you speak like one who carries honor." Daniel smiled faintly. Maybe humans and Veyari aren't so different after all. As Helios Station orbited peacefully, a storm brewed far away. a storm not of nature, but of politics, tradition, and fear. Daniel, Kalira, and Arian stood at the center of it, caught between two civilizations uncertain of what to make of them. But Daniel knew one thing. He would not let go of this chance. For the first time in his life, he felt he had something more important than duty or exploration. He had a family, and he would fight to protect it. The great hall of Helios Station was filled with light and sound. Diplomats from many worlds walked in groups, their voices rising in different languages. Traders shouted about goods from distant systems, and soldiers in uniform patrolled the wide corridors. For most people, this gathering was about alliances, trade, and peace. But for Daniel Reyes, it had become something deeply personal. He stood near a wide window, staring out at the endless stars. His reflection showed a man who had faced storms, battles, and loneliness. But now his eyes carried something new. Uncertainty, even fear. Behind him he heard small footsteps. Daniel. The voice was Kalira's. He turned to see her entering the room, her tall frame moving with the same strength and grace he remembered. She held Arian's hand. The child's golden eyes sparkled with curiosity as they looked at him. Kalira's face was calm, but her eyes carried weight. "We must speak." Daniel nodded, his chest tight. He led them to a quiet chamber, away from the noise of the station. The walls there were smooth and silver, and the hum of engines filled the silence. For a while, no one spoke. Daniel looked at the child again, still trying to believe what he saw. Arian's skin glowed faint bronze like Kalira's, but the nose, the shape of the jaw, even the way the child tilted their head, it was all too familiar. Finally, Daniel whispered, "So it's true. Arian is my child." Kalira sat down, resting her spear across her knees. She nodded slowly. "Yes. Our bond that night was stronger than either of us expected. Life was created. I chose to bring it into this world." Daniel's heart pounded. He knelt in front of Arian, trying to find the right words. "Hello," he said softly. The child blinked at him, then gave a shy smile. Daniel felt his throat tighten. He had seen many wonders in the galaxy, but none had shaken him like this. Kalira spoke again, her voice steady but heavy. "You must understand, Daniel. Among my people, such a child is not accepted. The Vayari believe bloodlines must remain pure. A union with another species is seen as weakness. When I carried Arian, I faced judgment. Some called for me to end it, but I refused. I chose to protect this life, even if it meant defying my people." Daniel clenched his fists. "They wanted you to—" He stopped, forcing himself calm. "That's madness. Arian is alive, strong, and beautiful. How can they not see that?" Kalira's golden eyes softened as she looked at the child. "Because they fear what is different. They fear change." She turned back to Daniel. "That is why I came here. I hoped the humans would understand. I hoped you would understand." Daniel stood slowly. He placed a hand on the wall, trying to steady his racing thoughts. He was a soldier, an explorer. He had been trained to face danger, to survive in hostile worlds, but nothing had prepared him for this, for being told he had a child, for learning that this child stood at the heart of a conflict between species. He turned back to Kalira. "So what now? What do you want from me?" Her answer was simple, but it struck deep. "I want you to stand with us. Arian is yours as much as mine, but more than that, Arian is proof. Proof that our people can live together, not only as allies but as family. If we can protect this child, perhaps others will see. Perhaps peace is possible." Daniel looked at her in silence. Then he looked at Arian, who had found a small silver coin on the floor, and was turning it over with fascination. The child's smile was so pure, so alive, that Daniel felt his heart shift. He realized he did not need time to decide. His answer was already inside him. "I'll stand," he said quietly, "no matter what it takes." Kalira studied him for a long moment, then gave a small nod. For the first time since they had reunited, her lips curved into the faintest smile. The following days were difficult. News of Arian spread across Helios Station. Some humans were curious, others suspicious. Soldiers whispered in the halls. Diplomats asked endless questions. For every person who saw Arian as a sign of hope, another saw danger. Among the Vayari delegation, the reaction was worse. Many warriors glared openly at Kalira, their eyes cold. Some refused to speak to her, turning their backs when she passed. Rumors spread that the Vayari High Council had been informed and was furious. Daniel stayed close to Kalira and Arian, determined not to let them face it alone. He spent hours with the child, teaching simple human words, laughing when Arian tried to copy them. Sometimes Kalira watched quietly, her stern face softening as she saw them together. One evening, as they sat in a quiet garden chamber filled with alien plants, Daniel asked, "What will happen when the council calls you back?" Kalira's eyes were distant. "They will demand I present Arian. They will test the child, judge them, and they may decide Arian must not live among us." Daniel felt anger rise. "No, I won't let them take Arian. I won't let them hurt you." Kalira looked at him with a mix of pride and sadness. "You speak like a Vayari warrior, Daniel. But this will not be a fight of blades. It will be a fight of honor. You are not bound by their laws, yet if you stand with me, you will share the danger." He met her gaze firmly. "Then I'll share it. Arian is my child. That's all I need to know." For the first time, Kalira's hand touched his. It was brief, strong, and filled with unspoken words. The day of departure came sooner than expected. The Vayari Council had summoned Kalira to return. Their warships waited, their presence sharp and heavy in the void of space. At the docking bay, Daniel carried his small pack. Kalira stood beside him, her armor shining. Arian clutched both their hands, eyes wide at the sight of the great vessels. A human officer pulled Daniel aside. "Captain Reyes, you don't have to go. This is their affair. If you stay here, no one will blame you." Daniel shook his head. "You're wrong. This isn't just their affair. It's mine too." The officer hesitated, then gave a small nod of respect. "Then may luck be with you." Daniel boarded the Vayari ship with Kalira and Arian. The air inside was cold and metallic, the halls filled with tall warriors who stared at him with open distrust. Daniel ignored them. He kept his hand near Arian, his mind sharp. The journey through space was silent and tense. Daniel spent most of it with Kalira and Arian in their quarters. Sometimes Arian asked questions in broken words, pointing at the stars outside. Sometimes Kalira told quiet stories of her people, of great battles, of ancestors who had carved honor into stone. Daniel listened carefully, but each story made him more certain. The Vayari would not give up their traditions easily. Facing their council would be harder than facing any storm, but he was ready. When their ship finally arrived, Daniel stood at the window, staring at the Vayari homeworld. It was vast, covered in bronze deserts and towering black mountains. Great cities glowed with golden lights, their towers sharp against the horizon. It was a world of strength, discipline, and tradition. Beside him, Kalira's expression was unreadable, but Daniel could see the tension in her shoulders. "Are you ready?" he asked quietly. Her answer was firm. "I was born ready." "The question is, are you?" Daniel gave a small smile. "For Arian?" "Always." Kalira looked at him for a long moment, then nodded once. The ship descended. The council awaited them, and Daniel knew their true trial was about to begin. The Vayari homeworld was unlike anything Daniel Reyes had ever seen. From the ship's window, the planet stretched out in colors of bronze and gold, deserts glowing under twin suns. Black mountains pierced the sky like jagged teeth, and vast cities shimmered at their bases. The architecture was sharp and commanding, built to show strength rather than beauty. As the shuttle descended, Daniel felt a weight in his chest. This was no simple visit. This was a trial, one that would decide the future of Kalira, of Arian, and perhaps of humans and Vayari alike. Kalira stood tall beside him, her golden eyes focused ahead. She wore her dark armor polished to a mirror shine, her spear strapped to her back. Every step she took spoke of discipline, but Daniel, who had learned to read her expressions, could see the tightness in her jaw. She was not nervous for herself. She was nervous for Arian. The child clung to Daniel's hand as the shuttle doors opened. Golden light poured in, and the sound of Vayari drums thundered outside. Hundreds of warriors lined the platform, their armor gleaming. They stood in silence, but their eyes were cold. At the center of the platform stood the Council of Nine, the highest rulers of the Vayari. They wore robes of dark fabric embroidered with golden runes, their eyes glowing faintly in the sunlight. At their feet, great banners snapped in the hot wind. Daniel swallowed. This was not going to be easy. The trial began in the Hall of Ancestors, a towering chamber built of black stone and lined with statues of ancient warriors. The ceiling rose high, supported by pillars carved with battle scenes. Torches burned with blue fire, filling the hall with a sharp scent. At the far end, the 9 counselors sat on golden thrones. Their voices echoed as one of them, an elder with scars across his face, spoke. "Kalira of the Vayari, you have been summoned to answer for your actions. You have broken sacred law. You have mingled your blood with an outsider. You have brought forth a child not of pure Vayari blood. Do you deny this?" Kalira stood straight, her voice steady. I deny nothing. I have done this. I have brought life into the world, and I will not apologize for protecting it. Murmurs rippled through the hall. Some warriors frowned, others shook their heads, the elder's eyes narrowed. You defy the laws of our people? Do you understand what punishment awaits such dishonor? Kalira's voice was sharp. I understand, and I accept any judgment you give me, but I will not allow you to pass judgment on the child. Arian is innocent. Daniel felt his chest burn with pride at her words, but he also felt anger rise. These people spoke of dishonor while ignoring the life of a child. The council turned their gaze to Daniel. The elder's voice was cold. And you, human, you dare stand in this sacred hall beside one of ours? Who are you to claim any right here? Daniel stepped forward, keeping his voice calm but firm. I am Daniel Reyes of Earth, and I stand here because Arian is my child too.
If you will judge Kalira, then judge me also.
But know this, I will not abandon my family. Gasps echoed across the hall. Some warriors muttered angrily. Others looked at him with curiosity. One of the counselors, a woman with eyes like molten gold, leaned forward. You speak boldly, human. Do you believe yourself equal to us? Daniel met her gaze without fear. I don't claim to be greater or lesser, but I believe in something your laws have forgotten. Strength is not only in bloodlines or battles. Strength is in protecting life. Strength is in standing for what is right, even when the world is against you. The hall fell silent. Even the torches seemed to pause their flicker. But not all were convinced. A tall Veyari warrior stepped forward from the crowd. His armor was heavier than the others, his spear tipped with a glowing crystal. His voice boomed across the hall. Words mean nothing. The law is clear. This child is an abomination. To allow it to live is weakness. If the council will not act, then I will. He raised his spear. Warriors around him shouted in agreement. The sound of metal striking the floor echoed like thunder. Arian clutched Daniel's hand tightly, eyes wide with fear. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to protect the child. He stepped forward, pulling Arian behind him. You'll have to go through me first, the warrior sneered. Then so be it, human. Kalira's voice rang out, sharp as steel. Enough! She stepped between them, her own spear flashing into her hand. Her golden eyes burned with fire. If you would threaten my child, then face me. I am Kalira, warrior of the Veyari. I claim the trial of honor. The hall erupted in noise. The trial of honor was ancient law, when two warriors clashed to settle a dispute before the council. The outcome would decide not only their own fate, but the fate of those they defended. The elder counselor raised his hand, silencing the hall. Very well. The trial of honor is accepted. Let the combat be done according to our laws. The outcome will decide the child's fate. The trial was held in the Arena of Blades, a wide circle carved into the mountain itself. Thousands of Veyari gathered, their chants echoing against the stone walls. Torches blazed, and the air shook with the sound of drums. Daniel stood at the edge, holding Arian close. His heart pounded as he watched Kalira step into the circle. Across from her stood the challenger, towering and fierce, his armor gleaming. The counselor raised his hand. Begin! The fight exploded in a storm of movement. Spears clashed, energy crackled, sparks lit the air. Kalira moved with speed and precision, each strike a lesson in discipline. Her opponent was strong, his attacks heavy and brutal, shaking the ground. Daniel's fists clenched. Every time the challenger's spear came close, his heart stopped. Arian pressed against him, whispering, Mother. Kalira fought like the storm Daniel remembered from their first meeting. She spun, blocked, and struck with perfect rhythm. Yet the challenger's strength forced her back step by step. Daniel could not stay silent. He shouted, his voice carrying across the arena. Kalira? Remember, you're not fighting alone. We're with you. For a moment, Kalira's eyes flicked to him. In them, Daniel saw not fear but strength. She let out a cry that shook the arena and drove forward with renewed fury. Her spear struck true, breaking through the challenger's guard. With a final strike, she knocked him to the ground, his weapon flying from his hands. The arena fell silent. Then slowly the crowd erupted in roars. Some shouted in anger, others in awe. Kalira stood tall, her chest heaving, her spear pointed at the fallen warrior. But she did not strike the final blow. Instead, she raised her weapon high and shouted, Honor is not in destroying life, it is in protecting it. The words echoed across the arena, striking deeper than any blade. When the fight ended, the council had no choice but to accept the outcome. The elder's voice carried across the hall. The trial is complete. The child shall live. The human may remain. This matter is decided. But Daniel could see it in their faces. This was not the end. Some accepted the result with respect. others with cold resentment. Arian's existence had shaken the foundation of their traditions, and not all would forgive that easily. That night, as they rested in a quiet chamber, Daniel sat beside Kaylera and Arian. The child slept peacefully between them, unaware of the storm they had faced. Kaylera's voice was low. "You stood with me even when death waited." "Why?" Daniel looked at her. "Because family isn't something you walk away from. Because you showed me what real strength is, and because Arian deserves a future." For a long moment, Kaylera said nothing. Then slowly she reached out and rested her hand over his. Her eyes were softer than he had ever seen. "Then we will face that future together," she said. And for the first time since arriving on this world, Daniel felt hope, not only for Arian but for the bond between their two people. The sun rose slowly over the Veyari homeworld, casting golden light across the black stone cities. From the heights of the council palace, Daniel Reyes, Kaylera, and Arian gazed at the sprawling civilization below. The events of the past days had left all three of them exhausted but stronger than ever. Arian sat between them, small hands holding both of theirs. The child's golden eyes sparkled with curiosity, tracing the shapes of distant towers, the glimmering rivers of metal running through the city, and the fleets of Veyari ships patrolling the skies. For Arian, the world was vast and full of wonder, but also full of potential danger. Daniel glanced at Kaylera. "Do you think it will last?" he asked quietly. "The peace, our place here." Kaylera's golden eyes were steady. "It will not be easy. Some of my people will resist. Some will never forgive what I have done, but change always begins with a step forward. Today that step has been taken." Daniel nodded, squeezing Arian's hand. "Then we take it together, no matter what comes next." The council chamber was empty now, a rare moment after the trial of honor had concluded. The elder counselor had approached them personally. His expression was neutral, but there was a glint of respect in his eyes. "Kaylera," he said slowly, "your courage has reminded us of something we often forget. Honor is not only in battle, but in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. You have proven that even a child of mixed blood can carry the strength of our people." Kaylera inclined her head. "I fought not for myself, but for Arian, and I will continue to fight for their right to live and learn as any child deserves." The elder looked at Daniel. "And you, human? Your presence, your courage, your willingness to stand beside Kaylera, it is unlike anything we have seen from outsiders. Perhaps there is more to humans than we expected." Daniel bowed his head, slightly humbled. "I only did what I had to do for my family, for what is right." The elder nodded and gestured for them to leave. "Go. The future is yours to shape." Outside the council hall, the city moved with its usual rhythm. Soldiers drilled in formation, traders sold goods from across the galaxy, and citizens went about their daily lives. Yet Daniel could feel the shift. A new energy pulsed through the city, a recognition that the impossible had happened. A human and a Veyari warrior had stood together, and their child now walked among them. Kaylera led them through the city streets, showing Daniel the places where children of the Veyari learned, the arenas where warriors trained, and the marketplaces where cultures collided. She spoke of traditions, of history, and of her people's unwavering discipline. Daniel listened, fascinated. He had explored countless worlds, but none as complex, as disciplined, as full of honor as this one. Yet he could also see the cracks, the places where fear and tradition had hardened hearts. He knew there would be resistance, but he also knew that Arian, with the love and guidance of both parents, could be a bridge across that gap. That evening, they returned to Kaylera's private quarters, a space filled with ancient artifacts, weapons, and the quiet hum of old technology. Arian played with small human toys Daniel had brought, laughing freely for the first time since arriving on the planet. Kaylera watched, her expression softening. "They are strong like both of us," she said quietly, "and they will need strength, not only in body but in heart." Daniel knelt beside Arian, lifting the child into his lap. "You are strong, little one," he said softly. "You have both worlds in you, and we will teach you to use that strength for good, to protect, to understand, and to unite." Arian looked up at him, eyes wide and trusting. Daniel felt a warmth he had never known before, the certainty that no matter what challenges came, they would face them together. Kaylera joined them, placing her hands over theirs. In that moment, the three of them formed a circle, a symbol of unity between species, between generations, between hearts. Days turned into weeks. Daniel learned Veyari ways, training alongside Kaylera, gaining respect not as an outsider, but as a protector of Arian. He mastered their customs, learned the language more fluently, and even began to teach Veyari warriors about human ingenuity, strategy, and courage. Kalira watched him, impressed by his adaptability and determination. Arian thrived, learning both human and Veyari lessons. They ran through training halls with the discipline of a warrior, yet carried the curiosity and wonder of a human child. Teachers, initially skeptical, began to praise Arian's intelligence, strength, and the courage they showed in simple exercises. The Veyari slowly began to accept them. Some whispered, some observed in secret, but over time, respect grew. Daniel and Kalira's bond, proven in battle and loyalty, became a symbol, proof that cooperation between species was possible. Then came a day of celebration. The city held a festival in honor of the peace achieved by the Trial of Honor. Humans and Veyari alike gathered, sharing food, music, and stories. Arian danced among the children, laughing freely, their golden eyes sparkling under the twin suns. Kalira and Daniel stood together, watching their child. For the first time, they allowed themselves a moment of relief, of pride. The road had been difficult, but their choices had made a difference. "You were right," Daniel said softly, his arm around Kalira. "Humans and Veyari aren't so different after all. Strength isn't just about fighting. It's about protecting, about caring, about standing for what is right." Kalira smiled faintly. "And you were right too. Courage doesn't only belong to warriors. It belongs to anyone willing to face the world for those they love." They stood in silence, watching Arian play, feeling a quiet peace settle over them. Later, as the twin suns set, painting the city in shades of gold and bronze, Daniel, Kalira, and Arian climbed a high terrace overlooking the world. Ships moved in formation across the sky. Lights glimmered from towers below, and distant mountains rose like silent guardians. Daniel took Arian's small hand. "Look at that," he said. "All of this. You are a part of it. And one day, you'll make it even better." Arian looked up at him, then at Kalira, their expression serious but filled with hope. Kalira's voice was soft. "You are the future, not only of your family, but of both our peoples. The choices you make, the courage you show, it will matter more than you know." Daniel felt a surge of pride. He had traveled the stars, faced storms and enemies, yet nothing compared to this, the chance to build a life, to shape the future, and to teach the next generation that strength and unity were greater than fear and tradition. As night fell, the city shimmered like a constellation on the ground. Daniel, Kalira, and Arian stood together, a family forged in courage, trust, and love. For the first time, Daniel felt that true exploration was not only discovering new worlds, but discovering connections between hearts, between species, between generations. And in that quiet moment, with the stars above and their child between them, Daniel knew one thing clearly. Humanity's true strength was not just in technology or war, but in compassion, courage, and the ability to rise above fear. Kalira rested her hand on his shoulder. "This is only the beginning," she said. Daniel smiled. "Then we face it together. Always." Arian reached out and held both their hands, their small grip firm and full of promise. And as the twin moons rose once again over the Veyari world, a new dawn truly began for them, for their child, and for the future they would build together.